people have been having some problems with the Genesis paints sticking on some of the Spanish vinyls. Not only with the Spanish vinyls, but I've also seen this happen with other vinyls as well. But I thought I'd show you some of the precautions I take, and I usually have great success in not having the paint come off of it after. And one of the most important things is, of course, giving your vinyl a good cleaning. Now, I do like the Dawn soap. It is a very good grease cutter, and it doesn't have a lot of lanolin and different oils for hand softening. I don't want oils added on to my vinyl here. So I do recommend that this dishwasher, it's just a dishwashing detergent, will be used. So what I normally do is I will take some warm water, and I like warm water because it opens up the pores, sort of to speak, in the vinyl, so that any grease or any dirt or anything that's left on there has a better chance of being lifted out with the soap. So all you do is open up your soap container, just dab a little bit onto your vinyl that you're using. I have a toothbrush. It's an old toothbrush, but it is soft bristled. I don't want to scratch the vinyl at all. And then I just go ahead and I start scrubbing here with the soap, and I get into all of the little creases and crevices, especially around the ears. And if you happen to have an open mouth baby, of course, get it inside there too. I try not to get the water inside or the soap inside the vinyl, because it's very hard to dry out that vinyl once water gets in there. And if any moisture is left in there, it is going to eventually cause mold growth. So we try not to get any of that inside the dolls. Now, if you have an open-eyed doll, it's probably going to get into the eye sockets. So be careful with that. If it's a closed eye socket, you can probably get the water out with a Q-tip to get it dried out. If it's split open in the outside or in the inside, then you're going to have to try and do your best to keep away from that. So after I've given it a good scrub with the toothbrush, I'm going to rinse it off here with the warm water again. Scrubbing as I go to make sure I've got all the grease areas that may have some dirt and grease stuck in there. Rinse until it's clean. And then what I'll do is I will take a soft cloth here, give it a basic dry, and then I'll put it onto my drying rack. And normally I will leave them dry overnight just to make sure there's no moisture. Sometimes if I'm in a hurry, I'll add a hair dryer onto that to quicken the process. Just a reminder, if you've got limbs, to make sure you scrub in between the fingers and the toes and anywhere that there's any grooves or crevices in there, because that's normally where the paint will start lifting, especially on the fingertips. So give them a good scrub as well, and then we'll show you the next procedure I do before I start my painting process. Thank you. Okay, so I'm back here. I have dried my doll, and I am now going to just check and make sure there's no water that is sticking in any of the creases. Water and Genesis do not like each other, so we ensure that it is thoroughly dry, and it is. So we're ready to paint. The application I'm going to put on here is called the Skin Texture Foundation by Authentic Reborn, and it is actually one of the nicest what I want to say, primers that you can put onto any vinyl. It has a nice soft tooth, not a real tough textured tooth, but it's enough tooth that it seems to make all the paints stick to it better, especially when you have a difficult to use vinyl that tends to resist some of the paints that are going on it with the Genesis brand. So do use the Skin Texture Foundation first, and I'm going to show you how I apply it. It's just a very thin coat, and then after that you can put on your other colors that you want to do. You can neutralize your vinyls afterwards, but this is the very first thing that I put on to help it bind all your Genesis paints onto your vinyl here. So when you open it, you'll see that there's just a little bit of an oily residue that is sitting on top. You want to make sure that you stir that in. So you can do that with a brush here. We just want to stir that oil in there because we don't want all that oil sticking up into our paints. That oil, by the way, is just like a thinning liquid. So you will find that the paint underneath is really stiff, and that's why the oils need to really be mixed inside that jar. Oh yeah, we're making a mess, of course. Normally I would use a toothpick or a popsicle stick, but I just had that brush in hand. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to continue on. Now that I have stirred that, I've taken a sponge here and I've applied just a little bit of a solvent. I use the Museum brand solvent here. And then I'm going to stick an oval round mop in here, and I'm just going to apply some right on top of my sponge. The reason why I add a little bit of solvent, it's not to saturate it, it's just to resist the paint off the sponge so your sponge isn't going to be soaking up all that paint pigment. I want it to come off easier onto my vinyl that I'm painting. So here I have the dot on there, and what I'm going to do is just start to apply it. I usually, because it will have the most on it for the first couple of dots, I will vary them around, and then I'll come back and mix it all and blend it all in here into the arm. And then what's on that sponge, I will continue up onto the fingers. I will do everything on this doll except for I will clean off the fingernails, the lips, and I will also clean off the toenails. So it does go into everything. Use the little wedge points in your sponges to ensure that you've got that into your creases. And also one of the spots I really do ensure that I've got it on is the tops and tips of the fingers, because that usually is the area that tends to lose and to have paint rub off. So I want to make sure there's a good tooth primer on there, and the Skin Texture foundation here is what I'm using as a primer for my Genesis paints to stick to better. Get it into those grooves and do a blending process, and just continue down into your arm. So you get the general idea. The most important thing is to make sure it gets into all those little grooves, but you don't want it sitting in there like a puddle, so of course clean them out, but make sure that you have some kind of a residue from the texture foundation onto that vinyl piece, and continue on with all the rest of your dolls. And then of course you're going to take it and you're going to bake it at your 265 Fahrenheit for 8 minutes, and then bring it back and you're ready to do your procedure that you want to paint your doll with. Okay, so that should ensure that all your paints stick on there a lot better than what they have been on the difficult to use vinyls. Thank you.